Hello my friends, I'm going to share with you today how to make a Native American hand drum. The components to this drum, the drum beater, the rawhide, the hoop, were all demonstrated in prior videos. The back of the drum has a handle that is made from the gathering of the individual laces. It's a crisscross pattern that you grip with your one hand. This method of holding the drum leaves a brilliant sound to the drum. There is no dampening effect from any supports that would be held around the drum. We start our construction by cutting a circular disc from our newly dried rawhide. Use the hoop as a pattern and cut the rawhide about 3 inches around the perimeter of the hoop itself. This outer piece of rawhide is being trimmed of all its tags. This piece is going to be used to make the lacing. To the right here you can see the hoop with the drum head, and you can gauge the amount of material that I needed for the sidewalls of the drum. Cutting this rawhide, you need a real hefty pair of shears or scissors, or possibly even tin snips. The width that I'm cutting for this lacing material is approximately 1/2 of an inch, and it's going to vary as I'm cutting this. As I'm cutting, I'm feeling the thickness of the rawhide. Some areas are thicker than others. Typically around where the neck and the shoulders were will be much thicker. So where I hit the thicker area, I cut it slightly narrower, and when I find a thin area, I make it slightly wider. You will need approximately 18 feet of lacing for this particular drum. I think I have about 20 feet when I'm finished. At the end here, you see I cut the end about twice as wide. This is going to have a slot in it, and that will be my starting point. The rawhide lacing and drum face is then soaked overnight in cold water. After it's removed from the water, it's wrung out and it's in a workable condition. Here I folded the drum hoop in half, and this has given me a center line. I'm punching a hole through both of these surfaces, and what that's doing is giving me 2 holes that are approximately 3/4 of an inch apart from each other. This double hole method makes a very strong connection between the lacing and the drum head. After you've punched the first 2 holes, open it up and fold those 2 holes together. This will then divide that drum head into 4 equal spaces, and then repeat your hole punching. This time when you open up the drum head, you want to grab the 2 pairs of holes and match them up with the 2 on the opposite side. This method of folding then will give you a center line that's bisecting 2 sets of holes. Then continue your punching. You want to continue this method until you have 16 sets or 16 pairs of holes. This will give you 16 tie points to the drum head. If it were a larger drum, you may have to increase the number of holes that you're going to be using. Whatever number of tie points that you decide upon, make sure that it's divisible by 4 so that you can have the crisscross handle. To start the lacing, pick a thicker area of the rawhide of the drum face and feed your lace through, and run it through the slot that you made in the one end, and this will effectively tie your lacing to the drum face. The next tie point is directly opposite of where you initially tied the lacing. Make sure that you count and to double check to make sure that you have it directly across from your starting point. Notice the correct height of the leather that comes up over the drum face. It's only about 3/4 of an inch over top the edge of the hoop. When you're doing the lacing, I like to be consistent with the method of what I'm doing. So I continuously rotate the drum 180 degrees and then keep doing my lacing on the far side of the drum. And you can see here, each time I do that, I'm rotating that drum head. The other thing that I like to do is each time I run the lacing cord, I feed the whole bundle underneath the whole stack of crisscrossing in the middle. As you continue the lacing, keep centering the rawhide on the hoop itself. Make all the edges that are coming up over evenly spaced around the perimeter. You can see how pliable this lacing cord is, the rawhide. When it was initially cut, it had these real sharp bends in the rawhide. After the soaking overnight, you can see that it is just like one supple cord, and you don't see these extreme bends that were in it initially. When the lacing is through every one of the tie points, what you do next is you start pulling any slack and put tension onto the drum head itself. And to do this, you need to keep following the lacing in reverse order of which you laced it, and keep pulling the slack out of each individual piece. As you continue to do this, you want to start stretching and pulling and pushing any of the ripples out of the drum skin. You can see here that I'm using my fingers to push the edges down inside the hoop, and I'm using my palm and thumb to push any of the ripples off of the side walls. After you have done that, you want to go through a second time and tighten all the lacing again, this time using a little bit more force. Next, we start making the handle. Locate 8 lace points and feed your cord through there to the other side and pull it taut. This will center the bundle of all the lacing. Double check. Here you see I'm one off, so I'm going to readjust, and that will bisect that drum right down the middle. Double loop this to secure the center point, and then we start making the individual rays of the handle, and we're going to work from the center out on each one of these, and we're going to lace 4 tie points into one bundle, and that would give us out of the 16, it'll give us 4 evenly spaced tie points or handles. Each loop that you make pull it taut, pull all the slack out, and tense it up. As you're doing this, it's going to continue tightening the drum head and all the laces. The number of wraps that you do may vary between each section of the handle, each of the 4 handles. But what you want to do is continue the lacing or wrapping until you get about 2 to 2.5 inches out from the center. And you want to have each one about the same length. And the wrapping is going to vary because the thickness of that lacing had changed when you constructed it. As you get to the very last wrap to where your handle is the right distance from the center out, you need to make a half hitch on the one lace nearest you, and this will secure that wrap. And then you will pull that to the center point and start wrapping your second of the 4 handles. Right here the half hitch is secured, and then I'm gathering the next 4 lace cords and going to continue the wrapping in the same manner, and I'll do this repeated 4 times then. When you're getting to the last set of 4, you can see the handle pattern is shaping up pretty good. Now the final tie, you're going to do a double half hitch so that it'll be a pretty secure knot at the end. And then with the extra cord, you can either trim it at this point or leave a section of it extended long enough that you can use it for a hanging loop. Smooth out any irregularities and adjust position of the leather and the handle. As it dries, everything is going to tense up and slightly shrink, so it'll give you a real nice tight secured handle. And again, here you can see I'm pushing the rawhide into a position where I want it to be drying. I want all of those in between loops to be pushed downward and have none of them standing up. If they were standing up, it would give you a rough surface on the outside of the finished drum. Here I'm pretty satisfied with the way everything laced up and smoothed out. I'm deciding to either cut the cord or leave a length for hanging, and I decided to cut it longer and make a loop to be able to hang the drum up on my wall. You can see what leftover lace I had from a 21-foot piece of lace when I started. I have about 3-foot lace finished. That gives me about 18 foot of lacing for this particular drum. A final check of all the lacing and the rawhide before I leave it set to dry. I'm finding that I had a couple of the spaces that between lacing that the rawhide wants to stand up. So what I did at the initial part of the drying is I placed some weight on these points so that as it dried it became stiffer to where it was staying inside the drum, and then I was able to remove those weights that I had holding it and let it continue to dry on its own. And here again, I'm doing a final pressing out of any of these surfaces. Try to smooth it as much as I can. In the drying process, it will pull almost all of those out and make it perfectly smooth. Place your hanging cord in the position that you want it when it dries. When it does dry, it's going to be real stiff and it will remain in that position. Also, when you're drying, prop an edge up. Don't leave the drum face surface down. You need to have air in contact with the entire surface. You can see here everything's tight, but it's kind of a dead sound. When it dries, it will have a real crisp, sharp sound to it. Here's the finished hand drum after it's dried. You can see how as it shrank, everything, or as it dried, everything shrank and tightened up. And you can see where I pushed down all of the tabs that were standing up. The outer shell that had a bunch of ripples is perfectly smooth now. The drum rawhide is almost translucent. Not almost, it is translucent. And that dead sound when it was wet is now alive. And beautiful voice. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.